Welcome to DomNit. Today, we are going to learn about variables and data types in programming using that. But first, I want to show you how to create a data file. So now you open your folder as I taught you first. So over here, when you create, you have to name it with an extension .dat. So let's say you want that file with the name variable. So variable .dat. Then enter. You will see that there's a data file created. So this is how we create a data file. So let's move on to the main purpose of this video. So variable and data types are some of the first things every programmer must understand, because when you're using variables, we store and manage information using the program. So the variable is a container that keeps information for later use. For example, let's look at this app. We can see that when we press or tap on the plus button, the number increases. Why? Because the number is being stored and the result is displayed, and it is stored in a container, which is the variable. So there are certain rules used in naming variables, and these are the rules. Now, the variable name must start with an English alphabet. So every variable name must start with an English alphabet or an underscore. So over here, when we move on later, we'll learn about when to use an underscore. And also, variable names cannot start with a number. Variable names are not allowed to have spaces in between them. And variable names should not have symbols like the hash, the percentage, the end symbol. And also, the variable names must be meaningful. So example of valid variable names are name, age, because let's look at name and age. Both of them start with English alphabet. This makes it valid variable name. You can also say underscore total amount, which is a valid variable name because it starts with an underscore, and it has a meaningful variable name. But let's look at true name. This variable name is not valid. Why? Because it has a number beginning the variable name. And also, let's look at total hyphen amount. This is also not a valid variable name because it has a hyphen in between total and amount. You can also look at student name, which is also not a valid variable name because there's a space between student and the name. Now that we've looked at valid and invalid variable names, let's move to data types. Now, what is a data type? Data type helps the computer understand whether the value is a number, text, true or false value, and so on. So over here, what we want to say is that there are different types of data types, and each of them are treated differently. So let's look at some of them. Let's look at the integer data type. So now the integer data type used to store whole numbers without decimals. So as we all know, integers are used to store positive numbers, 0 and negative numbers. So provided we have a value which is, let's say, 5.2, this cannot be stored as an integer because it's not a whole number. So We can use it to store the number of students in a class, the number of goals scored or conceded, because over here number of students can't be a decimal, it's always a whole number. And also we have another data type which is called double. A double is used to store decimal values. So over here it can store decimal values. So provided you have temperature which is 37, it will store it as 37.0 since it is used to store decimal values. And also we can use it to store money because it has decimal values. And also the third data type here is string. Now string is used to store text, and over here what will make a variable a string is that it must be in quotation mark, whether double quotation mark or single quotation mark, it makes it a string. So string can be used to store the name of a person, the school, and so on. Now the fourth data type is the boolean. Now the boolean returns a true or false value. So we can ask, is the student present? Over here a true or false value is required. So over here the boolean is used to store the student information, or is the payment completed. Over here a boolean is used to store it, or is the user logged in. Boolean is used to store a true or false value over here. So if it's true, it shows that the user is logged in, but if it's false, it shows that the user is not logged in. That's the end of this video. If you find this video helpful, like, subscribe, share, and comment. Practice regularly and revise old concepts.